Chapter 191, The Arrow That Shot Through the Night. Yi Yun stopped his attempts at approaching the heaven-purple Yang Ginseng. If he came any closer, it was bound to arouse suspicion. Now, Yi Yun was about 24 meters away from the heaven-purple Yang Ginseng. Yi Yun guessed that this was the distance limit that the heaven-purple Yang Ginseng could tolerate. Yi Yun gripped his 1,000-army saber tightly and carried on slaying the illusions. Desolate beasts were slain by Yi Yun, splattering blood everywhere. In the illusion world, Yi Yun had been dyed red from blood. Slowly, Yi Yun's eyes turned red. Within his originally clear and black eyes, there was now a hint of bloodthirst. It was as if he had completely immersed himself in the world of killing, slowly losing his senses. The heaven-purple Yang Ginseng could immerse a person in an illusion for eternity. If the person was unable to wake up from it, it would consume all of his yuan qi, eventually causing him to die from exhaustion. Yi Yun slowly became crazy. He was madly swinging the 1,000-army saber around. The cliff seemed like it was being slashed open by him. At this time, Yi Yun drew his Tai Tsang Bao. Whoosh! 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 Yi Yun began to shoot arrows at non-existent primordial behemoth illusions. The illusions exploded every time they were hit by the wind-chasing arrows. This was Yi Yun's final preparation. By drawing out the Tai Tsang Bao, Yi Yun could attack the heaven-purple Yang Ginseng in the shortest time possible. Switching the 1,000-army saber to the Tai Tsang Bao would inevitably take some time, and that short amount of time could lead to failure against the primordial herb. Yi Yun purposely slowed his arrow's speed. Each arrow's speed was one-third Yi Yun's maximum speed. To the heaven-purple Yang Ginseng, these arrows were like toys and of no threat to it. The heaven-purple Yang Ginseng was waiting. To it, Yi Yun was doomed. After this human fully immersed himself into the illusion and went crazy, it was only a matter of time before he died of exhaustion. By removing this hazard, it could carry on nurturing the blood yang flower within the herb mountain and slowly absorb the pure yang qi. In a few thousand years, it could then complete its evolution, becoming even stronger. When that happened, it could finally escape through the seal array of the Tai Divine City Herb Mountain. This number 60 Herb Mountains array was set up by the Tai Divine City's first city lord. Because of this, the heaven-purple Yang Ginseng had been trapped within this herb mountain for thousands of years. It was like a prison that it wanted to escape from. And when it did so, it could go into the infinite divine wilderness, search for wonderlands and find more pure Yang herbs. After swallowing their energy, it could slowly grow and evolve even further. It was unfortunate that there was only one blood Yang flower. If there were 2 blood Yang flowers or other pure Yang herbs, they could absorb more heaven-earth yuan qi for the heaven-purple Yang Ginseng. It might just need 1,000 years before it could escape from this herb mountain's array. The heaven-purple Yang Ginseng used its lacking intelligence to think about its future. Suddenly, there was a slight change in the heaven-earth yuan qi. The 2 disc arrays from not far away suddenly let out a soft sound, and a flame burned up. The source of this fire was from the activation charm for the Lunarine array. Of course, the heaven-purple Yang Ginseng had no understanding of items like activation charms, neither did it understand what that burning flame meant. As a safety precaution, the heaven-purple Yang Ginseng monitored Yi Yun, who was the owner of the array, but all it saw was Yi Yun shooting with the Tai Tsang Bao randomly. Yi Yun's eyes were blood red and his pupils had lost focus. His speed was clearly decreasing, as if he was slowly losing his mind. It seemed like Yi Yun had nothing to do with the disc array's change. But the fact was, once the disc array was activated, there had to be a result. With the disc array's owner losing his mind, the disc array would still run, but it would slowly lose control, and unable to release its original power. Who? The activation charm on the Lunarine disc array burned. This disc array had been gathering the yin qi in a 10-mile radius. When the activation charm burned, this yin qi became chaotic and a vortex of yin qi spread around. Buzz. The vortex spiraled, emitting dense yin-chi fluctuations. The ice-cold wind had the vortex at its center and it began expanding in all directions. It was as if it was going to destroy everything around it. Its strength was increasing. It was the time of the day when the yin-chi was the most intense. This lunar yin array's burst had pushed the yin-chi to the extreme. Not far from the yin-chi vortex was the blood yang flower. Although it was buried deep underground, it was still suppressed by this wave. Its body's brilliance had disappeared and it was no different from an ordinary red fruit. As for the heaven purple yang ginseng, it was a primordial herb, so the current surroundings did not affect it too much. But this chaotic and thick yin-chi vortex made the heaven purple yang ginseng feel a sense of dread. It wanted to take the blood yang flower away as soon as possible. But seeing Yi-Yun almost going mad, it did not want to be just one step short of success. If it could not get rid of this human, then no matter how dumb this human was, he could figure out something was not right. Upon returning to the Tai-A Divine City and reporting to the upper echelon of the Tai-A Divine City, then its good days were over. Human sages would frequent this number 60 herb mountain, making it wary all the time. It had no way of nurturing the blood yang flower or absorb pure yang qi. In just about a dozen more seconds, it could finally destroy this human. It could then leave in peace. Then whatever this disc array did was none of its business. The heaven purple yang ginseng's thinking was perfect, but suddenly, something strange happened. That lunar yin array that had gathered to form a yin-chi vortex suddenly shot out a vortex arrow the thickness of a human arm. This vortex arrow looked like it had been shot out by chance from the lunar yin array due to its overflow in energy. The vortex arrow did not fly towards the heaven purple yang ginseng, because if it did, the heaven purple yang ginseng could easily avoid it. But it flew towards the blood yang flower. The yin-chi vortex was very close to the blood yang flower. Since the blood yang flower had no self-defense mechanism, there was no doubt it would be killed by this yin-chi attack. This was something completely unacceptable to the heaven purple yang ginseng. The heaven purple yang ginseng had to constantly absorb pure yang qi to grow, only then could it escape the Tai Herb mountain. This blood yang flower was too important to it. Not only did it help the heaven purple yang ginseng to absorb heaven earth yuan qi, in a few thousand years, the heaven purple yang ginseng could even completely absorb the blood yang flower, completing its evolution. How could it allow this yin-chi vortex to destroy the blood yang flower? If that happened, it will need to spend another 2,000 years before it could escape the Tai Herb mountain. In such a long time, it might be discovered by a human sage. The heaven purple yang ginseng did not care about using its magic to attack Yi-Yun. It desperately rushed towards the blood yang flower. The lunar yin array's pure yin-chi vortex was dangerous, but it was no threat to the heaven purple yang ginseng. But, at the moment the heaven purple yang ginseng rushed towards the blood yang flower, Yi-Yun, who would seemingly be lost in the illusion, suddenly tensed up. His eyes flashed and took notice of the heaven purple yang ginseng's motion like a hawk. He had set up everything in an elaborate fashion, all for this hundredth of a blink of an eye opportunity. To the heaven purple yang ginseng, it was meaningless no matter how accurate the arrow was. Its speed was very extremely fast and could avoid all attacks. The only way to hit it was to predict its next move. This was Yi-Yun's only chance. Ever since he entered the large success stage of minute subtlety, Yi-Yun was able to gauge details and changes to a certain extreme limit. In an instant, he had calculated the trajectory the heaven purple yang ginseng would take. The Taitsang bow had been readied, its shiny black bowstring taut, with a thin flash of brilliance. Yi-Yun had drawn the bowstring, pretending to shoot a primordial behemoth's image, but he had been waiting for this fatal blow. All of Yi-Yun's energy surged to the Taitsang bow like a tsunami. The exquisitely forged Taitsang metal issued out a clear sound, and Yi-Yun released his fingers. Pang! It was like a thunderclap had sounded out in thin air. The Taitsang bow's bowstring snapped forward, sending a huge force into the wind-chasing arrow. With this tremendous force, the arrow formed a visible beam while flying directly at the heaven purple young ginseng. This arrow was Yi Yun's ultimate attack. The wind-chasing arrows formed a line and shot through the night. The heaven purple yang ginseng, which was eager to save the blood yang flower, was about to get hit by the arrow. It had never thought that Yi Yun, a 12-year-old kid who had seemed to be in his final moments and was only in the mid-stages of purple blood, would suddenly rise up like a tiger, sending out such a stunning blow. Using the Lunarine array to attack the blood yang flower, then completely attracting the heaven purple yang ginseng's attention, and finally calculating the heaven purple yang ginseng's trajectory. Everything was too perfect. Chapter 192, Primordial Herb in Hand. The heaven purple yang ginseng was particularly good at hiding. Even if a top human lord was standing in front of it, he would find it difficult to spot any traces of it. Hence, the heaven purple yang ginseng found this hard to believe. A kid with an extremely low cultivation level had not only discovered its presence, but he had even sent out such a terrifying blow towards it. Carefully selecting the Lunarine day, and seemingly placing array discs randomly, and finally having the confidence to grasp its trajectory all meant that the youth had calculated everything. Back when he picked the blood yang flower for the first time, he had already noticed its existence. He had deliberately planned for half a month to set up this perfect kill. A terrifying youth. The heaven purple yang ginseng had no time to think further. The wind-chasing arrow Yi Yun had shot over was less than a foot from it. There was no time left to dodge. This arrow was more than 3 times faster than the ones Yi Yun had previously shot. By pretending to be weak to reduce the heaven purple yang ginseng's wariness, making it think Yi Yun's archery skills were mediocre, he could then shoot the arrow that was a one-hit kill. Even this detail was not omitted by Yi Yun. Yi Yun's plan of capturing the primordial herb was perfect. In a split second, the heaven purple yang ginseng conjured all of its pure yang energy, pushing it to its maximum. It was planning to resist the arrow even at the cost of losing its spiritual energy. A mid-stage purple blood warrior had limited attack power. Typically, such an attack would not do any harm to its Yuan Qi defense. But when it tried to conjure its pure yang qi, the heaven purple yang ginseng realized that it had very little pure yang qi left. Firstly, it was due to the yin qi being extremely dense on this day of the month and time. Secondly, it had expended a lot of energy while attacking Yi Yun with its illusion magic. 3/4 of an hour past midnight on the Lunarine day that Yi Yun had carefully chosen played its role now. But this was still enough. The heaven purple yang ginseng was confident that the scarce amount of remaining pure yang qi it had was enough to defend against the arrow. It would, at most, be inflicted with minor injuries. It had already decided. After escaping this time, it would never return to this place. It would tunnel deep underground for a few hundred years before coming out. It did not even want the blood yang flower. Although the blood yang flower was important, it was not as important as its own life. This youth was too terrifying. Just by being able to make the herb turn into such a pathetic state by himself, if he were to bring a human sage, it was doomed to die. Thinking back to when it wanted to make the youth into fertilizer for the blood yang flower, the heaven purple yang ginseng cringed. It had underestimated the enemy. This youth was an evil demon who would not let anything slip past him. Humans were indeed a crafty species. With its pure yang qi gathered, the heaven purple yang ginseng formed a misty layer of pure yang around it. It was prepared to resist the impact of the wind-chasing arrow. But at this time, Yi Yun had activated his minute subtlety movement skill and fled in the opposite direction. He smiled, and with a simple thought, he silently recited. Boom! The moment the wind-chasing arrow hit the heaven purple yang ginseng's Yuan Qi shield, a bright flash emitted from the shiny arrowhead. A bead emitting a thunderfire aura had been embedded in the arrowhead. It was the divine Hellion bead. A sure-kill treasure made by a divine city master. Yi Yun had spent 2,000 dragon scale runes just to buy this tiny bead. This wind-chasing arrow, with the embedded divine Hellion bead, had been placed in a special spot in Yi Yun's quiver. Just before he activated the Lunarine array, he had strung this special arrow and just pulled open the bow. The thunderfire exploded at that moment. Boom! There was a tumultuous explosion, which tore up the night sky. Ice blue flames roared as numerous snake-like black lightning bolts shot out from within the flames. The fire was ice-cold fire. The thunder was Yin Hellion thunder. The heaven purple Yang Ginseng was afraid of thunderfire power. And among the thunderfire power, it was most afraid of Yin fire and Yin thunder. This combination of thunderfire power was the bane of the heaven purple Yang Ginseng. Cruel, too cruel. He had entrapped it with no possible chance of survival. Ah! The heaven purple Yang Ginseng let out a blood-curdling scream. The pure Yang shield around it broke apart with a pang sound. The Yin thunder and the frost ice fire interweaved together, sending out countless fire webs and lightning snakes. Upon coming into contact with the pure Yin chi from the surroundings, it swept over the area like a hurricane. Ka-cha! Ka-cha! The cliff's rocks crumbled within the frost chi. They were also burned by the cold fire, which slowly melted them into ash in the frost ice. The extreme Yin thunder power that had completely restrained the heaven purple Yang Ginseng's power exploded at close range, causing the entire cliff to be blown away with it. Yi Yun had fled the area before the explosion occurred. Just before the thunderfire power had swallowed the cliff, he had jumped off the cliff. Boom! Yi Yun was covered by a lot of soil and dirt. With a thought, Yi Yun's body was covered in a faint green light. It was like a layer of armor wrapping him within. This was the last item Yi Yun bought in the 10,000 pagoda, the Green Mystic Protection Charm. The charm contained the power of green nature that was endless. When the Yin Chi swept over, the charm produced a strong life force from the green nature power, reducing Yi Yun's damage to a minimum. The Green Mystic Protection Charm was not made by a master, but it was not sold cheap. Yi Yun had noticed who the maker of this Green Mystic Protection Charm was before buying it. It was made by Luo Hoyer, who was first on the man rankings. Luo Hoyer's products were very popular in the Tai A Divine City. It was because she made good quality products and there was a guarantee with her reputation. This Green Mystic Protection Charm did not disappoint Yi Yun. The misty green light blocked a large portion of the Yin Chi's rush. In addition to Yi Yun having jumped off the cliff earlier, he had not received the brunt of the force and he was essentially unhurt. A small amount of Yin Chi had entered Yi Yun's bloodstream, but it was all absorbed by the purple crystal. Over a long period of time, Yi Yun knew the rules of energy absorption that the purple crystal origins had. It could only absorb energy which belonged to no one, or in other words, energy that had lost its spiritual connection with its owner. For example, when herbs were picked, they were already dead, so Yi Yun could absorb their energy. The primordial species statue was also dead. If the primordial species was still alive, Yi Yun would have no way of obtaining the energy from within its body. Yi Yun did not know the purple crystal's reason behind such energy-absorbing principles. It was likely the purple crystal's law. Falling in midair, Yi Yun forcibly twisted his body. Ever since he reached the large success stage of minute subtlety, Yi Yun had precise control over the surroundings' chi flow. Hence, he could move through the air for 10 meters before landing in front of the cliff. Cha! The 1,000 army sabers stabbed into the cliff wall, causing sparks to fly. Using the 1,000 army saber, Yi Yun stopped his falling body. Following that, Yi Yun used his limbs to agilely climb back up to the top of the cliff. Just before Yi Yun fell down the cliff, he had activated the second disc array, the Cicada array. When Yi Yun had placed the two disc arrays, the Lunarine array was above the Cicada array. The Cicada array was the last item, created by a master, that had Yi Yun bought. The three items that Yi Yun bought were made by masters. The most expensive was the Divine Hellion bead, followed by the Lunarine array, while the Cicada array was the cheapest. The Cicada array was just a ceiling array. Desolate beasts or herbs sealed by the cicada array would be as weak as a tree plagued by cicadas. Their movement will be slow, or they might not even be able to move. That was how the cicada array got its name. The cicada array was the last line of protection Iyun had set. Iyun could not guarantee that the divine Hellion bead and the lunarine array was sufficient to debilitate the heaven purple yang ginseng's ability to move. If the heaven purple yang ginseng still had any strength left and had managed to escape through the soil, Iyun would suffer a huge loss. Hence, with the cicada array, he could block off the possibility of the heaven purple yang ginseng escaping. Only then was it foolproof. With a leap, Iyun returned to the top of the cliff. At the top of the cliff, the thick qi was still raging. Every blow of the wind was biting to the bone. The wind that blew on a person was like knives that were slashing on a person's skin, and it was extremely painful. The grass and rock on the ground had been flattened. The cliff top had been shaved, leaving thick white plume of whitish smoke. This white smoke was dispersing from the explosive center. Layer after layer of the smoke made it look like a giant lotus flower. Such a devastating explosion that gave rise to a lotus flower plume, it was aesthetically pleasing to Iyun. Right in the middle of the lotus flower plum, Iyun finally saw the heaven purple yang ginseng's real body with his naked eyes. It was about a foot long and it was as thick as a wrist, somewhat like a wooden stick. Its body was greenish purple in color and it was half buried in the ground. There was thunder firebolts lingering around it and a large part of it was frozen in ice. It looked miserable. Most of the heaven purple yang ginseng's roots were destroyed in the divine Hellion bead's explosion, even a huge block of its stem had been blown off. Of course, this damaged the herbal potency of the heaven purple yang ginseng. But this could not be helped. Iyun had used all his tricks and strength to barely capture the heaven purple yang ginseng. In this process, he did not dare to go easy at all, or he was bound to fail. But to Iyun, injuring the primordial herb was not a big deal. The primordial herb's energy was indeed pure, but in terms of quantity, it was much lesser than the primordial species. When people collected a primordial herb, they would be extremely afraid of harming the primordial herb, as heaven earth yuan qi would leak out from the primordial herb's wound, wasting its herbal potency. It was the same for this heaven purple yang ginseng. Ignoring primordial herbs, even when normal people dug up ginseng, they had to use a brush to clear the ginseng's roots, in order not to break them, or the ginseng would be drained of its energy. Iyun could feel the pure energy within the heaven purple yang ginseng leaking out from its wound. Iyun smiled. With the spiritual energy interfaced with the purple crystal, the yuan qi and herbal essence that was about to dissipate slowly formed light dots and drifted towards Iyun. The dissipated energy was no longer controlled by the heaven purple yang ginseng after it left the body. Hence, the purple crystal origins could easily absorb this free energy. Seeing this pure energy, Iyun subconsciously licked his lips. His expression was that of a glutton seeing a feast that suddenly appeared before him. Chapter 193, Absorbing the Heaven Purple Yang Ginseng. If Iyun directly used the purple crystal to absorb a complete herb, it would easily gain the attention and arouse the suspicions of the Taiya Divine City alchemists. But in the current situation, the heaven purple yang ginseng had suffered serious damages. Iyun was only absorbing the escaping herbal essence, which would not lead to any suspicion. Of course, Iyun could only do this occasionally. He could not always bring back herbs that were seriously damaged. Besides, damaged herbs would greatly reduce their value, and the compensation in dragon scale runes paid out by the Taiya Divine City would be less. In conclusion, it was not very beneficial to Iyun. Under the purple crystal's control, none of the herbal essence of the heaven purple yang ginseng was wasted. It was all absorbed by Iyun. The energy that gathered into light dots were like dancing pixies. Just as Iyun was planning to absorb these energies, the heaven purple yang ginseng, which was like a piece of dead wood, suddenly made a whoosh and tunneled into the ground. This heaven purple yang ginseng was still trying to escape, even after it was seriously damaged. But it was no use. Not a second after the heaven-purple Yang Ginseng escaped, a black light flashed. A light curtain appeared, forming a ceiling barrier 30 meters in radius. Pang! The heaven-purple Yang Ginseng crashed in the light curtain and it bounced back. This was the cicada array, which was specially used to seal in spirit beings. If the heaven-purple Yang Ginseng was in perfect condition, it would be able to escape from this array, but now, it was completely impossible for it to do so. The heaven-purple Yang Ginseng had never been this seriously damaged before. Its spirit was in chaos and it could feel its energy slowly depleting, and this energy was slowly drifting towards Yi Yun. With the 1,000 army saber in hand, Yi Yun approached the heaven-purple Yang Ginseng. He was not going to go easy on it at all. The heaven-purple Yang Ginseng was cunning, so Yi Yun was even considering cutting it into pieces before storing it away. If not, it could escape midway and everything would have gone to waste. At this time, the heaven-purple Yang Ginseng suddenly let out a shrill baby child scream. It charged at Yi Yun, using its remaining pure Yang Qi to form a spirit sword that stabbed at the center of Yi Yun's eyebrows. It wanted to bet on that one shot, a last gasp attack. Yi Yun did not hesitate, he slashed forwards with the 1,000 army saber. Ka-cha! One was a spent force, while the other, who was waiting for an exhausted enemy, was fresh and fit. There was no doubt what the result of the clash was. With a shattering blow, the 1,000 army saber sliced straight down. Pang! The heaven-purple Yang Ginseng was swept away by the 1,000 army saber. Yi Yun did not choose to cut the heaven-purple Yang Ginseng into two. If he had done so, its value would sharply drop. But Yi Yun realized that even so, the heaven-purple Yang Ginseng spirit was growing weaker, as if it was dying soon. Once a primordial herb died, it meant that the spirit formed from thousands of years of cultivation would disappear. In this regard, Yi Yun showed no mercy. Between him and the heaven-purple Yang Ginseng, they were in a life-and-death battle. If he had not killed the heaven-purple Yang Ginseng, he might be subdued by the heaven-purple Yang Ginseng's magic illusion. If that happened, he would end up as fertilizer for the blood yang flower. When Yi Yun looked at the heaven-purple Yang Ginseng, he noticed that its surface color was dimming. Strand after strand of pure energy left it. It seemed like it did not wish to live on any longer. Having been caught to be brewed as drugs, it might as well be dead. Oh? This energy? Yi Yun grabbed the heaven-purple Yang Ginseng's roots. Under the purple crystal's vision, he could see pure purple energy leaking out from the heaven-purple Yang Ginseng's wound. This energy had formed into something like the vital essence from a legendary green dragon. This was the first time Yi Yun saw such a green dragon essence energy form. The energy he had seen before were all light dots. Yi Yun hesitated slightly. Using the purple crystal origins, he gathered the green dragon essence and the energy light dots that the heaven-purple Yang Ginseng had previously leaked into his body. Immediately, a herbal aroma seeped into his olfactory nerves. It was extremely comfortable. Taking this opportunity, Yi Yun quickly took out a squarish jade box that was a foot in length. This was a herb box built using lotus jade. It could preserve the herbal essence to a great extent. Since the heaven-purple Yang Ginseng was seriously damaged, it was unrealistic to preserve all its herbal essence. He had to make do with whatever there was left. Whatever essence could not be preserved was totally absorbed by Yi Yun's purple crystal. When these energy light dots entered his body, Yi Yun felt his body warm up. The heaven-purple Yang Ginseng's herbal essence was slowly showing its effects. What surprised Yi Yun was the energy that resembled a green dragon, which was very unlike the light dots. This energy surged into Yi Yun's soul. Boom! When this energy entered Yi Yun's soul, Yi Yun felt a tremor in his soul. Following the tremor, his vision was filled with images. These images were chaotic and random. Some of them were scenes from the Divine Wilderness or the Tai A Divine City. Some of them were from the Lian tribal clan, the difficult life Yi Yun had with his sister. There were also scenes from his previous life. It was an amalgamation of bits and pieces of Yun's life. Oh. This is. Seeing these confusing images, Yun suddenly understood that the green-colored dragon energy was the psychic power left behind after the heaven-purple yang ginseng spirit shattered. The heaven-purple yang ginseng may be a plant, but once it gave life to a spirit, it had extremely strong psychic powers. If not, it would not be able to create illusions. Psychic power was the heaven-purple yang ginseng's offensive measure and also its defensive measure. After the heaven-purple yang ginseng died, its shattered spirit was the best medicine for the soul. Yun was delighted. He began to quietly absorb this energy. Soon, it was like his soul had sprouted a gurgling stream. The heaven-purple yang ginseng's psychic energy was like a spring fountain. It cleansed and moistened Yun's soul. This made him feel very fresh. Slowly, Yun felt that his soul had some minor changes, but he did not know what they meant. At this time, besides the psychic energy, the heaven-purple yang ginseng's herbal essence also began to take effect. It flowed into Yun's meridians, and with a dull roar, strong yang qi flared through Yun's body. The heaven-earth yuan qi contained a rich amount of pure yang energy. This energy was the essence gathered from thousands of years of the heaven-purple yang ginseng absorbing heaven-earth yuan qi. After numerous times of purification, every bit was precious. Slowly, Yun's body transpired a warm air. His skin turned red as if he had been scalded by hot water. The heaven-purple yang ginseng's herbal essence was yang in nature, while it was still in the middle of the night where the lunar yin qi was dense. Yun's body was burning with a young fire within, but yin qi flowed outside his body. Unconsciously, the two, yin qi and yang qi, converged in Yun's body. Under Yun's deliberate manipulation, the two qis formed into a wonderful yin-yang symbol. Yun's body was internally hot and externally cold. It was as if he had been alternately dipped into ice and fire. As the herbal essence was digested, Yun's pores oozed out black blood. This was the accumulated bad blood and dirt that had been accumulated in Yun's body for the past 6 months. At this time, it was being forced out by the herbal essence, which refreshed Yun. Under the forging of the herbal essence, his muscles grew stronger, and his blood was filled with vigor. This process went on for a long time as Yun fully immersed himself in his own world. From midnight to dawn. And then from sunrise to noon. With the sun shining high in the sky, the yin qi on the cliff had been blown away. Yun sat on the top of the cliff like a motionless statue. It was a slow process to digest the heaven-purple yang ginseng's herbal essence. After all, it was a primordial herb. Back when Yun absorbed the chimera's energy for 2 hours, he took an entire night to fully digest the energy. Slowly, another day passed. Deep into the night, a thin crescent moon hung in the sky. It was the 2nd day of the lunar month. The yin qi had lessened and some mist had gathered. Yun's body was as if it was encased in an ice cube. His hair and eyebrows had formed a layer of frost. Slowly, Yun had finished digested 70% of the heaven-purple yang ginseng's herbal essence. The heaven-purple yang ginseng's spiritual energy had given Yun unimaginable benefits to his spiritual well-being. Yun could clearly feel his mind expand and grow. His spiritual energy was continuously increasing. As long as Yun wished, his brain would produce all sorts of complex illusions. Yun even felt that if he wished, those illusions could fly out from his mind and affect others. It was as if the heaven-purple yang ginseng's power of illusion had been inherited by Yun. The 2nd night passed. Yun was still in meditation on the morning of the 3rd day. Suddenly, he heard a light sound within his soul, as if something had cracked. Immediately after that, he could feel a strong suction force in his head. All his body's spiritual energy, blood, marrow, were all being pulled by a force to the middle of his eyebrows without any warning. This feeling of all of his blood and soul being sucked out from his body frightened Yun. What is the meaning of this? The blood, bone marrow and soul began to consolidate in the middle of his eyebrows, as if it was going to give birth to something. Following that, an intense pain was felt by Yi Yun. He felt as if a drill had been pierced in between his eyebrows and it was continuously swirling deeper. It's too painful. Yi Yun's forehead was covered in sweat. He has lost control of his body, which made him panic. Yi Yun used his spiritual energy to interface with the purple crystal in a bid to stabilize the turbulent blood and energy within his body. But at this time, Yi Yun suddenly saw that in between his eyebrows, a bead-like object had been formed from his own blood and soul. This bead was covered in blood tracks and it was connected to the surrounding meridians and blood vessels. It had become an inseparable part of his body. When this bead appeared, the feeling of his body's blood being sucked had away disappeared. The pain also suddenly eased. Everything returned to normal. The only thing different was that tiny bead that had appeared in the middle of Yi Yun's eyebrows. Oh? What is this? Chapter 194, Blood Ball in the Middle of the Eyebrows. Yi Yun carefully observed the tiny bead. It was about the size of a green bean and it was covered in blood threads. This little ball was in the central axis of Yi Yun's body. The Ren Du Er Mai was running through it. And Yi Yun found that when the energy within his meridians flowed past the blood ball, a certain amount of it was stayed in it. What is this? Why did something suddenly appear in the middle of his eyebrows? Yi Yun suddenly thought of something. He realized that this blood ball was like an eye. Eye. Could it be Heaven's eye? When this thought suddenly flashed across Yi Yun's mind, he was shocked. Heaven's eye was in the middle of a person's eyebrows. When warriors reach a certain cultivation level, they can open their Heaven's eye. It was not easy opening their Heaven's eye. First, they had to form the Heaven eyeball before they could completely open Heaven's eye. Yi Yun recalled the books he read about Heaven's eye. He increasingly believed that this blood ball in his brain was the Heaven's eye. Warriors who opened their Heaven's eye would have an extraordinary perception of their surroundings. A typical warrior's cultivation level was difficult to tell from external appearances, but once the Heaven's eye were opened, one could easily use the Heaven's eye to read the cultivation levels of warriors of similar levels. Back when Yi Yun first met Lin Xintong and Old Man Su was able to tell Yi Yun's cultivation level at a glance. He could also tell that Yi Yun had reached the tempered body, dragon pulse state. This was because Old Man Su had opened his Heaven's eye. The Heaven Purple Yang Ginseng also had the ability to read Yi Yun's cultivation level. This was because the Heaven Purple Yang Ginseng's psychic power was much stronger than typical warriors. As such, the Heaven Purple Yang Ginseng could be considered to have opened Heaven's eye. It was very difficult to open Heaven's eye. Many Yuan Foundation realm warriors, including the Jin Longwei's 1,000 households, might not open their Heaven's eye or they might not even form their Heaven's eyeball. Yi Yun had originally thought that he would need to reach the Yuan Foundation realm before he could form Heaven's eyeball and he would only be able to open the Heaven's eye in the late stages of the Yuan Foundation realm. But now, after digesting the Heaven Purple Yang Ginseng and using the purple crystal to perfectly absorb the Heaven Purple Yang Ginseng's spiritual energy, Yi Yun had completed this step. With this, he could open his Heaven's eye by the time he reached the early stages of the Yuan Foundation realm. Warriors with opened Heaven's eye were not only aware of dangers approaching them, but their ability to grasp opportunities greatly increased also. Even their battle powers would be up to notch. Their sharp senses could read an enemy's weakness, and this was a great advantage. The Heaven Purple Yang Ginseng is indeed a primordial herb. Yi Yun was rejoicing. Having caught a divine herb and having the purple crystal to help him absorb its herbal essence, it could be said that all the factors were in his favor. Yi Yun was confident that he had formed the Heaven's eyeball in the mid-stages of purple blood much faster than the geniuses from the royal families or reclusive families. With the Heaven's eyeball formed, Yi Yun could feel the surroundings with his eyes closed. This was an indescribable feeling. It was as if he had soared into the sky and he was looking at this colorful world from a totally different perspective.
Using his senses to sweep the ground, Yi-Yun could tell how many fine gravel and bone particles were around him. He also knew every crack and texture of the gravel and bones. Yi-Yun could even tell the weak points of the stones and the bones. If he slightly knocked on those weak points, they would shatter. When Yi-Yun attempted to interface his spiritual energy with the purple crystal, he was shocked by the scene he saw. In the past, Yi-Yun's energy vision was just a bunch of dim light dots. Those light dots were the symbols of energy, and Yi-Yun could only tell where there was energy, and where the energy was stronger. As for what that energy represented, he had no clue. But now, using the Heaven's Eyeball and coupled with the purple crystal, everything was different. In Yi-Yun's energy vision, every energy blob was clearer, and they had even evolved into what the actual thing looked like. There were mountains, flowing water, and forests. Yi-Yun suddenly realized what had happened. Everything in this world contained energy in them. Even if it was an ice crystal or a rock, it possessed energy. But as their energies were weak, Yi-Yun could not detect them before, as his senses were weaker. But now, by forming the Heaven's Eye, Yi-Yun could clearly see everything in this world. This feeling was miraculous. Yi-Yun was very fascinated by this. Yi-Yun believed that by opening his Heaven Eye, his control over the purple crystal would level up too. In that case, if he were to go to the Wilderness Divine Hall, what would the outcome be when he used the purple crystal to absorb the Chimera's energy? Yi-Yun licked his lips as he was full of anticipation. He couldn't wait to go back to the Tai-A Divine City. Yi-Yun sprang up from the ground. He had now completely digested the Heaven Purple Yang Ginseng's energy. At the same time as forming the Heaven Eye bead, his entire body had been injected with the pure Yang energy from the Heaven Purple Yang Ginseng. Looking within his body, his blood seemed to be covered in a faint golden layer. He clenched his fists tightly and his joints cracked. The pure Yang energy boiled within his body, and Yi-Yun could feel that his body strength had made a quantum leap. Yi-Yun had just recently broken through to the mid-stages of purple blood. This absorption of the Heaven Purple Yang Ginseng's energy had only consolidated Yi-Yun's cultivation level, and so, it did not bring any improvement to his level. But, with the pure Yang energy integrated within Yi-Yun's body, it had increased his strength up a notch. Yi-Yun felt like his body was a simmering volcano that was filled with infinite energy, wishing it could erupt. With the Thousand Army saber in hand, Yi-Yun casually slashed. Cha! A sharp visible blade chi was sent out. The blade chi carved a trench almost 30 meters deep into the ground. Good. Yi-Yun was very pleased with the strength of that move. Yi-Yun had a thought, and so he took out the flowing mercury gown from his luggage. Usually, the 200 cauldron weight would burden Yi-Yun's movement skills. But now, with 200 cauldrons, Yi-Yun felt as if he was wearing a layer of light armor. His strength had increased greatly. Yi-Yun began to experiment by increasing the flowing mercury gown's weight. From 200 cauldrons, he increased it to 300 cauldrons, all the way to 500 cauldrons. Such a heavy weight made Yi-Yun's feet sink into the soil. At 500 cauldrons of weight, Yi-Yun finally felt the pressure. However, this was not Yi-Yun's limit. If it was a momentary burst of strength, Yi-Yun felt that he could increase his strength to 600 cauldrons. Yi-Yun's eyes lit up. The primordial herb was worthy of its name. For an item that could even move a human sage's heart, how could it be a common item? In the Tai-A Divine Kingdom, be it the royal family or the reclusive families, the young heroes from these families were not eligible to enjoy resources like a primordial herb. It would be a waste. But Yi-Yun now had the primordial herb, the primordial species, and all the cultivation resources. They were all the best. Yi-Yun walked towards the cracked lunarine disc array. With his Thousand Army saber, he sliced downwards. The rock opened, and at 3 meters deep, Yi-Yun dug up the blood young flower which had lost its luster. Back then, Yi-Yun's attack on the blood young flower was a feint, but even so, when the divine Hellion bead exploded, the blood young flower had been affected too, and it lost a great deal of spirit. If it was not for the 3 meters of soil protecting it, the blood young flower might have been blown to pieces. Iyun sealed the seriously damaged blood young flower into the jade box.
Looking up into the sky, it was already noon.
Iyun had applied for 7 days of continuous herb picking. In 3.5 days, he had captured the heaven purple yang ginseng in a successful procedure.
It's time to go back. I wonder what the prize will be.
By capturing a primordial herb, even if it was seriously damaged, the divine city would still give a sizable reward. This was a herb that sages had difficulty obtaining.
Iyun was filled with anticipation for the reward.
But on explaining everything, Iyun had to choose his words carefully. As Iyun was digesting the heaven purple yang ginseng's energy, the cultivators in the Tai Divine City were still doing their routine Divine City cultivation. In the Tai Divine City school grounds, a group of youths were standing at attention in the scorching sun. These youths were all wearing heavy training suits. Under the sun, the sweat on their muscles gave off a little luster. The leader of this group of youths was Baldi Qin. Zhou Kuei, Su Zhang, and Song Zijuan, who were Iyun's rivals or friends, were also within this group of youths. Baldi Qin had his hands behind his back and he stood with his legs apart in the middle of the school ground. He was inspecting the recruits in front of him. The purple tungsten wall was behind him. When Baldi Qin first brought this group of people to this school ground for training, the training objective was to insert the primal arrow into the purple tungsten wall. Back then, be it Zhou Kuei or Iyun, none of them managed to insert the primal arrow in. Baldi Qin had previously given them all a month's time. Whoever who could insert 3 primal arrows into the purple tungsten wall would be rewarded with 2 hours of cultivation time in the Wilderness Divine Hall.
And now, the 1 month was up. It was time to check the training of these recruits.
Today, the recruits led by Baldi Qin had gathered early on the school grounds. All these days, Baldi Qin's authority was deeply ingrained. No one dared to be late without his urging. Baldi Qin glanced and was satisfied with all these punctual youths, but, hold on a second, his face of satisfaction disappeared. He frowned for he noticed someone missing. Iyun had not arrived.
Oh? Where's Iyun? Baldi Qin looked at Song Zijuan with the eyes of a hawk.
Baldi Qin knew that Song Zijuan and Iyun both came from the Divine City's Jinlong Wei, so he naturally asked Song Zijuan about Iyun's absence.
Chapter 195, Returning to the City.
Upon being questioned by Baldi Qin, Song Zijuan became nervous. He had no idea how to explain where Iyun was. For today's assessment, Song Zijuan had looked for Iyun so they could go to the school ground together, but Iyun was not in his room. When he found out where Iyun was, he turned speechless. The Xuanwu army members around Song Zijuan began to show schadenfreude when they noticed Iyun was absent. They knew very well that Baldi Qin was stern. Whoever went against Baldi Qin's commands would have to bear all the consequences. Iyun was going to be in trouble. Iyun had previously outshone all of them, so they were glad to see Iyun get in trouble. This Iyun sure is interesting. When choosing jobs, everyone chose either sparring or forging, but only he chose herb picking, which is done only by girls. He even dared to miss Instructor Qin's examination. A Xuanwu army member privately transmitted his voice with his peers.
He's only courting death. I don't know what Iyun is thinking.
It's clear he has a great foundation. If he works hard, he will obtain good results, but he had to self-degrade himself. How much strength could he gain from a month of picking herbs? Back then, he couldn't insert a primal arrow. I doubt he is capable this time. A flurry of discussion erupted amongst the members of the Xuanwu army. They were unable to insert the 3 primal arrows as required by Baldi Qin, but they were barely able to insert one. It was only possible for their strongest few to manage 3. In the past month, they had been tortured by their seniors. This living death cultivation had made them grow so much.
I was asking you. Where is Iyun? Baldi Qin looked at Song Zijuan's hesitation and slowly began to frown.
He was like a lion about to burst into a rage. Song Zijuan helplessly told the truth, answering the instructor. 3 days ago, Yi-yun had applied for a 7-day period of consecutive herb picking with the herb picking job office. Now,
he should still be on the herb mountain. When Song Zijuan said those words, it made everyone dumbfounded. Applied for a 7-day period of consecutive herb picking? Yi-yun had simply ignored the assessment day Baldy Chin had decided on a month ago, and he was still on the herb mountain picking herbs. Picking herbs on the herb mountain. The people were at a loss whether to laugh or cry. How much did Yi-yun love that job? He ignored everything else just to pick herbs for 7 days. Was herb picking that addictive? Many of them did not know what to say. According to what Yi-yun said, he had been picking herbs since young. Even when he came to the Divine Wilderness campgrounds, he carried on picking herbs. They had previously ridiculed Yi-yun, saying that it was a habit from being a bumpkin. Those words were originally a joke, but now, it seems like Yi-yun was really thinking so. A talent came to the Tai-A Divine City to be a farmer. Hearing Song Zijuan's words, Baldy Chin's forehead, which had a scar, popped a hideous vein. Baldy Chin still appreciated Yi-yun. He felt that Yi-yun was the most outstanding person among his recruits. Although he was inferior to Chionyo or Chu Xiaoran, it was not impossible for him to enter the top 1,000 of the heaven or earth rankings within the next 3 years. Although this achievement was not amazing, it was considered pretty good. Previously, when Yi-yun wanted to pick herbs, Baldy Chin had not interfered. But now, he had promised that whoever succeeded in this assessment of inserting 3 primal arrows into the purple tungsten wall would be given 2 hours to enter the Wilderness Divine Hall. This reward was a tidy sum. Yi-yun had chosen herb picking. For that, Baldy Chin felt that he may have his reasons. But for him to not grab the opportunity to enter the Wilderness Divine Hall, what was the point of him staying here in the Tai-A Divine City? Baldy Chin ignored the matter with Yi-yun. To him, Yi-yun was just a good recruit, and that was it. There were many talents better than Yi-yun in the Tai-A Divine City. Losing one Yi-yun was nothing. Everyone, listen up. I said a month ago that in this 1 month, if anyone can insert 3 primal arrows into the purple tungsten wall, I will reward them with 2 hours of cultivation time in the Wilderness Divine Hall. I mean what I say. In today's assessment, let me see the results of your cultivation for this past month. Baldy Chin's words made the youths gear up. The past month's experience in the Tai-A Divine City was too unusual for them. A month ago, many of these youths were young masters from rich and large family clans. They were all extremely proud, but having arrived in the Divine Wilderness camp, their lives were only constantly filled with beatings after beatings. They were beaten till their bones fractured and their tendons tore. They vomited blood from their serious injuries. After being beaten up, they would eat some healing medicine, and once they recovered, they would stand up to continue to be beaten. As sparring partners, they could counterattack. In the beginning, they were indignant about it, and tried to counterattack against the senior cultivators they were sparring with. The result was them being beaten up even worse. After continuous beatings, they matured and honed their cultivation levels. At the same, in this 1-month ordeal, they had trimmed their pride. It could be said that they had really matured. Today was the day to test the fruits of their labor. Just as this bunch of hot-blooded youths were rearing to step up, Yi-yun had been transported back to the Tai-A Divine City through the teleportation array. According to the Tai-A Divine City's herb-picking rules, cultivators had to hand in the herbs immediately upon returning to the city. This was to prevent the cultivators from privately trading herbs, which falsified their harvests. As such, Yi-yun naturally went to the job office. It was about noon. Typically, cultivators would only hand in herbs at night. After all, there was a 25 dragon scale runes rent that was fixed. The same amount was deducted whether the herbs were handed in at night or at noon. An additional hour of herb picking was an additional hour of revenue. It was usually extremely deserted here in the herb picking job office.
It being noon meant there was nobody around.
Wang was reclining lazily in a chair. She was flipping through a pharmacological text. Wang was actually an alchemist.
Back when she was cultivating in the Tai Divine City, she had obtained a good ranking in the man roll rankings.
Hearing footsteps by the door, Wang peeped over the book and looked towards the door.
What she saw made her frown.
Yi Yun was the one who had entered. Didn't you apply for a 7-day herb picking period?
It's only been 3.5 days, why are you back early?
Wang now found Yi Yun irritating.
This kid obviously had keen senses and he had extraordinary talent, but he had been lacking in perseverance towards herb picking. The herbs he handed in was getting less and less each day. When Yi Yun applied for 7 days of continued herb picking, she had guessed that Yi Yun would only show up for work, but not exert himself. But she did not expect that Yi Yun was worse than she expected. He could not endure the boredom and he actually came back 3.5 days early. He was hopeless. Chapter 196, Handing Over the Herbs. Hello, Sis Wang. Yi Yun entered the office with the herb basket on his back. A silly smile plastered over his face. Wang looked unfriendly, but Yi Yun was already accustomed to it. Sis Wang, I see you are reading a book. Yi Yun tried to make small talk, but Wang's mean look made people swallow their words. Wang stayed silent. She threw the book in her hand on the table and looked coldly at Yi Yun. Yi Yun did not know what to say. He took down the herb basket and placed it on the counter. The 2 jade boxes that contained the blood young flower and the heaven purple young ginseng were of course within the herb basket. You sure came back early. Wang glanced at the light herb basket and said with a cynical voice. Her sharp voice was ear-splitting. Yes. It's because I managed to obtain some extra bonus. I was worried about the loss of the herbal essence, so I came back early. Besides, I have something else to deal with. Yi Yun's words were the truth, but of course it sounded like excuses. Humph. Wang could not be bothered to expose Yi Yun. She felt that it would be a waste of her breath to say anything to this lazy and self-deprecating youth. You applied for 7 days of continuous herb picking. Each day is 35 dragon scale runes. Even if you came back early, I will still deduct all the dragon scale runes, not one less. By applying to pick herbs continuously, the rent was even more. This was because typically herb picking was done in the day, but picking herbs continuously allowed one to pick through the night. Typical cultivators would spend the night cultivating in the Divine City, so very few cultivators applied for this. That is expected. Yi Yun was not bothered about a mere 200 or so dragon scale runes. Seeing Yi Yun's indifferent attitude, Wang felt that he was really hopeless. By lifting Yi Yun's herb basket, it was as Wang expected. The herb basket was mostly empty. Wang randomly grabbed some herbs. She was planning to dry them before weighing them. But as her fingers went into the basket, they brushed against a hard object. Herb box? With her sharp instincts as an alchemist, Wang immediately identified what the hard object was. She was slightly stunned, and using her slender fingers, she opened the box with a snap. When the herb box opened, there was a red object. This object was seriously damaged and looked like a bloody pulp. This is... A trace of uncertainty flashed in Wang's eyes, but it disappeared in the next second. As an alchemist, she may not be able to identify the herb immediately, but her instincts told her that this was at least a heaven-ranked rare herb. The feeling she got from the herb couldn't be wrong. Wang picked up the red object and tried to discern it. It was likely the fruit a size of a fist. It was most likely due to the damage that the red fruit's juices had leaked out. Could this be? Wang's face flashed a look of disbelief. With her finger, she dabbed a tiny bit of the pulp before tasting it. That strong yang qi and the taste of blood confirmed Wang's own guess. Blood yang flower. And it was a blood yang flower that had borne fruit. Middle-grade heaven-ranked herb.
Wang looked up with disbelief at Yi Yun. You actually picked a blood-young flower?
Ever since Wang took over the office for decades, this was the first time a cultivator had brought back a heaven-ranked herb.
And it was even a middle-grade heaven-ranked herb. This was astonishing. Yes, my luck was good, Yi Yun scratched his head.
As a heaven-ranked herb, the blood-young flower was extremely difficult to find. But in the long history of the Tai'an Divine City, there were quite a few cultivators with keen senses who managed to pick heaven-ranked herbs. Only those among the best, like Zhang Yi, had gathered more than one. Hence, for this blood-young flower, Yi Yun did not need to do much explanation.
Luck? Hearing Yi Yun say that, Wang's eyelids twitched. Even if she had gone personally, it was not easy to find a heaven-ranked herb. And Yi Yun had just used an understatement like luck to explain it away.
This blood-young flower was one of the more hidden kinds among the heaven-ranked herbs.
How could one find it just from luck?
Wang stared deeply at Yi Yun.
She was unhappy.
This kid had been lacking in perseverance and diligence, yet he managed to pick a blood-young flower.
How was this fair to those cultivators who were diligently picking herbs? It was not fair.
You sure have good luck to find such a herb.
Wang said it unhappily.
It was impossible for a typical person to pick a blood-young flower just with luck. But for someone with keen senses like Yi Yun, with luck, it was normal for him to pick a blood-young flower.
Don't be too happy yet. This luck doesn't happen often.
Also, this blood-young flower is seriously damaged.
Don't you know how to pick a herb? You actually picked it in such a sorry state. I will, at most, give you a third of its price. Wang said coldly and was constantly suppressing Yi Yun.
She had a great amount of authority on deciding a herb's price, but she did not wish to give even more dragon scale runes to Yi Yun. It would be better off giving them to those who lacked talent but worked hard. As Wang said that, she reached to open the second jade box.
Pa!
With a soft sound, the green cover opened.
It revealed a dried and cracked item that resembled a carrot. Yet another damaged herb. Wang became angry. Yi Yun's herb-picking methods were destroying heavenly treasures.
So many good herbs had been destroyed by him.
Are you blind? Can't you be more careful when picking herbs? Don't you know that once it's damaged, it will?
Just as Wang was beginning to reprimand Yi Yun, she stopped. Her words got stuck in her throat. She was like a clucking chicken hen which was suddenly being strangled. Wang stared with her eyes wide open. Again, she looked carefully at the dry and cracked ugly carrot-looking herb within the jade box. After looking carefully for about 10 seconds, her body slowly froze. Her eyes became rigid and her mind went blank.
This is...
Wang felt like her heart had been mercilessly pinched. Her breathing turned irregular as her bloodstream turned turbulent as she stared with a daze.
An absolutely ridiculous and unbelievable conclusion appeared in her mind. Primordial herb.
The dry-looking herb that a 12-year-old child turned in was actually a
primordial herb. How could this be? Wang reached out with trembling hands.
Picking up the jade box, she carefully looked at the herb within. She looked at every tiny root carefully. No matter how much she looked, she was more and more convinced of her earlier conclusions. This was a primordial herb. Comparing it to the books, it had to be a heaven purple yang ginseng. A kid had managed to pick a heaven purple yang ginseng. Wang's neck seemed to rust.
Her actions became slow.
With difficulty, she turned her gaze from the heaven purple yang ginseng inch by inch towards Yi Yun.
This must be a dream. This thought appeared in Wang's mind. But how could this a dream feel so real? As a human lord warrior, how could she be confused between fantasy and reality? She opened her dry mouth, asking Yi Yun, "This herb was picked by you?" Yi Yun nodded, "Yes." "How? How did you pick it?" Good luck. When Wang heard Yi Yun's soft explanation, she nearly vomited blood. To explain it like that, was this a game? You think I'm an idiot?
Wang gnashed her teeth and stared at Yi Yun with burning eyes. At the same time, she quickly closed the jade box to prevent the herbal essence of the heaven purple yang ginseng from leaking. Of course, Yi Yun was not expecting to fool Wang with such ease. As for how he picked the heaven purple yang ginseng, he had already prepared a tale. For this, Yi Yun had spent the past few days to search through the library for every detail on the heaven purple yang ginseng. Even some alchemists, who have never seen a heaven purple yang ginseng, could not beat Yi Yun in his knowledge of the heaven purple yang ginseng. After all, there were too few primordial herbs. Some alchemists might have seen other primordial herbs, but not seeing a heaven purple yang ginseng was very normal.
Chapter 197, Yi Yun's Reason. To be able to pick this herb, it was really the luck of this junior. It was like this, Yi Yun stretched out his words. He made sure that there was nothing left out in the story he had fabricated. In the past few days, this junior had been diligently picking herbs in the number 60 herb mountain. Late last night, this junior was near the peak of a mountain. I saw a flash of lightning a few hundred miles away. It seemed like it was raining over there. But, the lightning that occurs when it rains is usually bluish-purple. But this lightning was blood-red in color. But because it was too far, I couldn't see it well. Even so, I felt that I was not mistaken. From young, I have an inexplicable sense and intuition for strange phenomena. I found this lightning strange, as if something abnormal was happening. As such, I rushed over there to investigate. I ran at my top speed, but by the time I reached there, the lightning had stopped. From the soil and plants, I saw obvious signs of lightning having struck the area. I perceived the surroundings carefully and I found an unusual yin-yang qi in the surroundings. I did not know what happened. I just recalled in some books that when treasures appear, it will create some phenomena. With this thought in mind, and seeing this phenomena, I felt that maybe this had something to do with a treasure. Hence, I carefully searched the surroundings. I dug 3 feet in the ground and did not miss a single leaf. After that, I found this blood young flower. It was deeply buried within, and it was already damaged. Its juices were mixed with mud, but even then, I could still recognize it. I was overjoyed when I found the heaven-ranked herb. I took out the jade box and I was thinking of sealing the blood young flower to prevent it from losing its herbal essence. But suddenly, I found that my surroundings had changed. It was like I had traveled through a space-time tunnel. I was suddenly in the middle of the divine wilderness. There was thunder and lightning in the sky and there were a large numbers of desolate beasts charging at me from all directions. I panicked and I took out my 1,000 army saber to engage in battle. However, I felt something was amiss. How could the scenery suddenly change? My perception has been different from others, even when I was younger. I quickly calmed down and perceived the surroundings. I suddenly felt that the beasts charging towards me did not exist. Everything was just an illusion. I realized that something was trying to harm me. I could not find it, but I could guess that it was a magnificent existence. At this time, I felt my head ache terribly. It was as if something had entered my head. I nearly went mad, but I suddenly realized that if I couldn't endure through it, I was doomed. With all my might, I maintained the last bit of clarity within my mind and, with my tight song bao, shot out a desperate arrow. This arrow had been specially modified by me. I had embedded the arrowhead with a divine Hellion bead that I bought earlier in it. Divine Hellion bead? Upon hearing this, Wang suddenly interjected. Of course, she knew the weakness of the heaven purple yang ginseng. This was too much of a coincidence. The arrow prepared Yi Yun had prepared earlier was the bane of the heaven purple yang ginseng. Yes, Yi Yun scratched his head with shame. I heard that the divine wilderness camp has a high death rate. As this junior is afraid of death,
so with the first amount of dragon scale runes I earned, I exchanged them for something defensive. I did not expect it to be used so early on.
I'm really lucky.
Seeing Yun with his boy next door look, and the continuous mention of the word luck, Wang could not stop her eyelids from twitching. The reason he bought the divine Hellion bead was because he was afraid to die. As a mid-stage purple blood kid, you actually exchanged a divine Hellion bead for defense.
Absolutely speechless.
What was more outrageous was that this divine Hellion bead had really come in handy.
This luck was too ridiculous.
Yun was not afraid of mentioning the divine Hellion bead. As for the Lunarine array and the Cicada array, he did not mention them. Even Zhao Qingqing did not know what items he had bought in the 10,000 pagoda. Even if people were to investigate it in the future, the 10,000 pagoda was not like a cashier machine like in his previous life. It did not have any storage system, so who would know what was bought by who amongst those millions of items?
And you actually shot this herb just like that? Wang asked. That is how it was. Back then, my mind's hint of clarity was like a tiny boat in the huge ocean. It could disappear at any time. I shot that arrow with all I got. As for the direction I shot, I followed my feelings. I did not know what I was shooting at. I just felt that if I didn't shoot, I was likely to die. Following that, there was a large explosion. I was violently pushed by that explosive wave and I nearly fainted. After struggling to not lose consciousness, I began searching my surroundings. I guessed that something formidable had attacked me, so I wanted to find out what it was. My surroundings had turned into a scorched piece of land. The blood yang flower was buried by the soil again and it was damaged even more. With my perception, I searched carefully and turned over every rock and finally I found a carrot-looking thing 3 feet deep. It didn't look eye-catching, but I knew it was something spectacular. Yun's story was cooked up with a mixture of truth and falsehood. But everything within it was based on some factual foundation. Wang listened carefully to the story. When Yun finished, she gave Yun an odd look. According to the way Yun said it, Yun's luck was really ridiculous. The lightning Yun said he saw from a few hundred miles away was likely a heaven calamity. A large number of primordial herbs would slowly evolve, but there were some primordial herbs that threw a variety of exotic lucky chances and they would create a small heaven calamity with a tiny probability. This heaven calamity was unpredictable and it would usually catch the primordial herb off guard. Such a heaven calamity would make its evolution more thorough, but if it were to fail in surviving through the crisis, it would be destroyed. According to ancient books, the blood-red lightning that Yun saw was a specific feature of the heaven purple yang ginseng's heaven calamity. By surviving through a calamity, it was the point at which the primordial herb was at its weakest. At this point, a primordial herb's concealment abilities, attack power and its escaping abilities would all greatly decrease. After surviving a calamity, a primordial herb would hide itself to slowly recover. This heaven purple yang ginseng would likely do so, but Yun had to appear at this moment and found the blood yang flower it was nurturing. Hearing Yun's description, Wang felt that this calamity came too suddenly. This heaven purple yang ginseng must have responded in a panic, which resulted in it to be greatly weakened. At this time, the blood yang flower, which could help it quickly recover, was too important to the heaven purple yang ginseng. How could it let Yun steal the blood yang flower? As such, it ignored its serious injuries and attacked Yun. By right, it wouldn't have been a problem. Yun was still young and he had a low cultivation level. Even if the heaven purple yang ginseng was greatly weakened, it was no surprise that it could handle Yun. But Yun had extraordinary mental fortitude. At a young age and with his mere mid-stage purple blood cultivation level, he could actually escape from the illusion. This gave the heaven purple yang ginseng no choice but to increase its psychic attack on Yun, causing it overdraft on its pure yang qi. But what made Wang most puzzled and alarmed was that Yun was able to use his intuition to guide him under the illusion attack. By using the divine Hellion bead arrow he had prepared well in advance,
he killed the heaven-purple young ginseng.
This was too ridiculous. But, upon further thinking, with a divine Hellion bead made by a master, a full-strength shot from Yi Yun's Taitsung Bao and a seriously injured and overdraft heaven-purple yang ginseng made it possible for Yi Yun to turn the tide. Wang was stunned for a while.
What Yi Yun said may sound strange, but there was nothing unreasonable with the story if one gave it further thought. And besides that, there was no other way in explaining how Yi Yun had managed to capture the heaven-purple yang ginseng.
Is that possible?
A less than 13-year-old kid managed to capture a primordial herb.
This was absolutely preposterous. How could all those long-bearded alchemists accept this?
The only mysterious thing was Yi Yun's intuition. But this was not surprising. In this world, there are some people who are born with naturally keen senses.
In extreme conditions, they could have a magical sixth sense, which leads them to good fortune and allows them to avoid disaster.
This intuition was often life-saving.
Wang gawked at Yi Yun before moving her dried lips. Do you know what it is that you have dug up?
Yi Yun thought and said, it should be a primordial herb. Actually, this junior had some speculations.
This junior has seen some divine wilderness books. One of those herbs described within was very similar to the herb I picked.
As this junior knew it was a matter of great importance, I came back earlier.
Hearing Yi Yun's words, Wang's jaw dropped. She really did not know what to say. She had previously heard Yi Yun say, because I managed to obtain some extra bonus. I was worried about the loss of the herbal essence, so I came back early. At that time, she felt that Yi Yun was merely fabricating some story. But she never expected that Yi Yun was actually saying the truth and he had actually brought back a heaven-purple yang ginseng. This was the so-called some extra bonus? This was some extra. What sort of worldly joke is this? You wait for me here. I'll report to the elder. Wang had trouble saying those words. It was almost like she had lost her ability to speak. To Wang, a cultivator picking a primordial herb was an absolutely important event. It has been very long ever since the Taiya Divine City was built. But this was likely the first time that it happened. She was completely at a loss how to handle it. The manuals in the office did not label the rewards for a primordial herb because there was no need to. Upon thinking of this, Wang suddenly remembered that when Yi Yun came to the office, he had asked what the reward was for picking a primordial herb. At that time, she had thought that this youth was crazy and he was somewhat like a retard. But now, she suddenly felt that she was the retard. This world had really gone mad. Chapter 198, The Increase in Strength. Report it to the elder? Yi Yun hesitated as he was counting the time in his mind. How long would it take to report to the elder? Oh. Why are you asking? Wang was surprised for a moment. The Divine City's elders all lived within the central Divine Tower and many of them were in closed-door training. At Wang's level, she had to go through the bureaucracy, which would definitely take some time. Oh. It's this. I said earlier that I had something to deal with. Can I take off for now? Yi Yun did not want to wait here for nothing. He still remembered Baldi Qin's assessment that was set a month ago. Originally, Yi Yun was fully focused on the preparations needed for picking the primordial herb in order to be in time for the Lunarine Day. As a result, he applied for 7 days of continuous herb picking and he had planned on giving up the assessment. However, his capture and absorption of the primordial herb went surprisingly smooth and he came back 3.5 days early. Hence, Yi Yun figured that he could make it in time for the assessment. The 2 hours of cultivation time in the Wilderness Divine Hall was worth 1,000 dragon scale runes. 100 or 2 dragon scale runes was alright, but to lose out on 1,000 dragon scale runes, Yi Yun would feel the loss. Although he would receive a hefty reward for handing over the primordial herb, but in the Taiya Divine City, every resource was bought with dragon scale runes, so he had to save every rune. What's the matter? Wang asked Yi Yun. At this time, what was more important than the primordial herb? Yi Yun explained the assessment to Wang. Upon hearing this, Wang snapped unhappily, "It's just 2 hours of cultivation time. I too can reward you. The elder might even want to meet you this time."
When Yi Yun heard this, he was overjoyed.
"Thank you, Sis Wang."
Originally, I heard rumors that Sis Wang was petty, but it's now clear those rumors were untrue.
See, since Sis Wang is rewarding me with 2 hours of cultivation time, it would be a waste not to receive Instructor Qin's reward too.
If the elder wants to see me, then regardless of what I'm doing, I'll stop everything immediately and rush to the central divine tower.
Nothing will be delayed, right? Yi Yun was good at exploiting people.
He accepted Wang's offer and he did not want to waste Instructor Qin's. He had managed to get 4 hours of cultivation time in one go, which was worth 2,000 dragon scale runes.
Wang was speechless.
In the past, she did not think that this kid was that crafty. But upon further thought, if the elder were to summon him, whether he came from the office or from the school grounds, the distance was about the same and there would not be much a delay. As for the reward, since Wang had said so, she could not retract it. After all, Yi Yun had brought back a primordial herb.
Wasn't such a large contribution worth more than a bonus reward of 2 hours cultivation time in the Wilderness Divine Hall? I'll give you 15 minutes. Get everything done quickly.
Wang said stiffly, but the way she looked at Yi Yun, she had an undisguised sense of appreciation for him. Yi Yun's account may seem like it was all luck, but from his judgment at that point in time and the arrow he shot using his perception, it could not simply be explained with luck. If it wasn't Yi Yun and it was someone else, that person would have been turned into a retard by the heaven purple yang ginseng, which made it an empty harvest and also a great waste of a golden opportunity.
Thank you, Sis Wang.
Yi Yun smiled and turned around, running towards the school grounds. At this time, in the school grounds 10 miles away, Instructor Qin's group of youths were undergoing their assessment.
Insert it! Insert it! A group of energetic youths shouted like they were in heat. A stout youth was holding on to a primal arrow.
His forehead's vein popped out and with a loud shout, he inserted the primal arrow into the purple tungsten wall with great difficulty.
Dang! With a loud metallic sound, the primal arrow's arrowhead was barely inserted into the purple tungsten wall. Although it was a bit shaky, it was still inserted. In today's assessment, about half of the 100 members could insert one primal arrow into the purple tungsten wall. This result was completely different from the one a month ago. The first reason was that after a month, these people had matured a lot. The second reason was, a month ago, these youths had just entered the Wilderness Divine Hall and had frog jumped 5 kilometers with weights, which made them exhausted. But today, they were all in tip-top condition. Brother Kuei, well done. It's the second arrow. Someone shouted.
The stout youth who inserted the primal arrow was none other than Zhou Kuei. He was the person with the strongest strength among the 100 people. It was fairly easy for Zhou Kuei to insert the first primal arrow, but the second arrow was proving to be more difficult. Next, it was the third arrow, which was the most critical arrow. By inserting it, he would obtain 2 hours of cultivation time.
If he couldn't insert it, then it would all be thrown out the window.
Zhou Kuei pumped himself up. In this past month, he had been in the smithy, forging metal tens of thousands of times. His palms had been roughed up uncountable times. All of that was to prove himself. Today, regardless if he could insert the third primal arrow, Zhou Kuei felt that he was a winner, because he had beaten his previous self. Just as Zhou Kuei was taking several deep breaths and preparing to pick up the third primal arrow, someone let out a cry.
Isn't that Yi Yun? Hearing that voice, everyone turned around.
Not far from the school ground, a youth in linen clothes was walking over. This youth's hair was messy and his clothes were ripped. He looked very pathetic.
This was of course a result of picking the primordial herb. When the divine Hell Ion bead exploded, its shockwave had also inflicted Yi Yun.
After he finished absorbing the primordial herb's essence, he had rushed back to the Tai Divine City and he had no time to tidy up. This herb-picking kid only just came back.
Oh?
Seeing Yi Yun, Instructor Qin frowned slightly.
But he noticed that Yi Yun's cultivation level had increased.
A month ago, he was in the early stages of the Purple Blood Realm, but now, he was in the middle stages of the Purple Blood Realm.
Instructor Qin, Recruit Yi Yun reporting in.
Yi Yun gave Baldy Qin a standard Tai Divine Kingdom military salute.
You are an hour late. Instructor Qin looked sternly at Yi Yun. Just this gaze made many recruits soft on their feet. Sorry, Instructor.
Previously, when I went to pick herbs, I didn't have time, Yi Yun tried to explain.
When the crowd heard this, they could not help but laugh. To be delayed by herb picking.
This Yi Yun had devoted his youth and life to picking herbs. This was probably his life's pursuit.
They could not understand. This herb-picking job was done by women, why was Yi Yun so enthusiastic about it? Yi Yun, you came just in time. Let's compete again today. I've already inserted 2 primal arrows. This will be my 3rd arrow.
Seeing Yi Yun appear, Zhou Kuei licked his lips.
Zhou Kuei had been disappointed not to see Yi Yun today.
His strength had increased and his abilities had improved. All this was to prove himself.
And Yi Yun was the best opponent. A month ago, he had been undermined by Yi Yun. Today, he wanted to exceed Yi Yun and regain his face. Without Yi Yun, he felt like he had punched cotton. That. Instructor Qin, I just arrived now. Can I still take part in the assessment? Yi Yun asked weakly, awaiting Baldy Qin's instructions. Since he was so late, Baldy Qin had all the right to disqualify him from the assessment.
Baldy Qin snorted back coldly, go on up.
Don't forget what you came to the Tai Divine City for. Baldy Qin reminded Yi Yun again not to undermine his cultivation for a pointless job.
He really did not understand why Yi Yun loved picking herbs that much.
Come on.
The most excited person was Zhou Kuei.
How about it?
You must have gotten quite a lot from picking a month's worth of herbs.
I heard you even applied for 7 days of continuous herb picking. Why did you come back early? Zhou Kuei smiled at Yi Yun.
His arms were crossed across his chest and he casually leaned on a primal arrow.
This primal arrow was one of the 2 he had inserted in. He had inserted 2 primal arrows. One was firmly inserted into the purple tungsten wall, but the other was not as firm. The other end of the arrow's shaft was slowly sagging downwards. Even so, this was a result to be proud of. Zhou Kuei was the only person among the 100 people who was able to insert a second primal arrow. Because of obtaining a pretty good harvest, I came back early. Yi Yun said simply. Harvest? You got a plentiful harvest while picking herbs? He. Zhou Kuei found it amusing. Could picking a few herbs be considered pretty good? What was there to be happy about? Yi Yun, you picked herbs for a month. So it's not fair competing against you. But since it's your choice, you can't blame anyone else. Today, I'll show you what a real harvest is. Zhou Kuei shook his fists. In this past month, he had burst numerous blisters on his hands. His blood had been mixed with sweat. Holding the hot forging hammer through some cloth, the pain was excruciating. Despite it being memorable to Zhou Kuei, it also made him surge with pride. This was the life of a man, was it not? How could the herb-picking lifestyle of a woman compare with his? But Yi Yun said, you don't have to. I'll do it with you. I'm in a hurry and someone might be looking for me in a while. As Yi Yun said this, he stood in front of the large metal box that contained the primal arrows. His tone was casual, but this tone made Zhou Kuei frown. He was unhappy. It seemed like Yi Yun did not even care much about this assessment. This kid. Who do you think you are? And there was someone else who wants to meet him. Who was it? Another medicine kid he picks herb with? He sure had turned into a celebrity, and he was busy enough. Zhou Kuei rubbed his wrists. He took a deep breath and bent his back. He hugged the third primal arrow. Today, I'll show you the results of the grueling demon-like training I endured through from forging metal. Zhou Kuei got into a firm horse-riding stance. Both his feet was planted firmly on the ground. With his lower body stable, he passed his strength from his spine to his shoulders, then to his arms. His muscles swelled up, with vein after vein popping out. Just as he was about to shout out to lift up the third primal arrow, he heard a deafening dang sound. He nearly let out his breath. What's the matter? Zhou Kuei turned around and his eyes widened. Behind him, a primal arrow was firmly embedded into the purple tungsten wall. The end of the arrow shaft was still vibrating. It was not because it was unstable, but because the power at which it was inserted with was too large. It had nowhere to dissipate the energy, and so it could only vibrate to get rid of it. This vibration could hurt anyone who came too close. The primal arrow had been inserted at least 3 feet deep. What? Zhou Kuei was dumbfounded. This arrow was inserted by Yi Yun? How did he do it so quickly? He took at least 10 seconds or more to insert an arrow. The time needed to pick up the arrow was especially time-consuming as he had to gather his strength. But just now, he had just bent his back and he had not even lifted the arrow, yet Yi Yun had already finished inserting an arrow. Yi Yun was already beginning to move the second primal arrow within the large metal box. And surrounding Yi Yun were a bunch of youths, with their mouths agape, in a lifeless state. They had just seen with their own eyes how Yi Yun, using his 2 hands, lifted the first primal arrow as if he was lifting wooden logs. It looked completely effortless. Then, holding the primal arrow, he charged at the purple tungsten wall and like skewing kebabs, he inserted the arrow deeply into the wall. From beginning to end, Yi Yun did not shake once while holding the arrow. Stable. Quick. Forceful. The people were still stunned, and before they could recover, Yi Yun had already picked up the second primal arrow. Yi Yun's energy was circulating in his body. The warm flow of energy that came from absorbing the heaven purple yang ginseng surged through his body. Because he already had broken through to the mid-stages of purple blood, using all his strength to insert a primal arrow did not make him exhausted. It even gave him a delightful feeling. But as he was holding on to the second primal arrow, Yi Yun suddenly paused. Oh. It seems there's some disharmonious flow of energy. When he was using all his body's energy, Yi Yun had a feeling that although the strength given to him by the primordial herb was great, it was like a horse without reins that made him find it hard to control. He had always been using the cultivation technique, Dragon Rib Tiger Bone Fist, to control his body's energy, but he slowly found that Dragon Rib Tiger Bone Fist had some shortcomings. The primordial herb's energy was too strong. As the Dragon Rib Tiger Bone Fist was a cultivation technique before the purple blood realm, it was becoming more inadequate. When Yi Yun stopped, it made the crowd more speechless. It was difficult to lift the primal arrow. Due to the primal arrow's weight, their arms would feel like breaking. As such, once they lifted it, they would rush to insert the arrow to save energy. None of them would be like Yi Yun, who held the arrow while in a pause. It was as if he was contemplating the meaning of life. This is way too overbearing. Just as the people were thinking about this, it was as if Yi Yun was suddenly enlightened. Without any hesitation, he held the second primal arrow and charged at the purple tungsten wall. Dang! With a second loud sound, the second primal arrow was firmly inserted. Again, the arrowhead was inserted more than 3 feet deep and the tail was vibrating violently. Not far away, even Baldy Chin was quite dumbfounded by this scene. What is this kid doing? He had clearly been picking herbs for a month. How did his strength increase so much?
Although it had something to do with him breaking through to the mid-stages of purple blood, but there was a tiny difference between the early stage and the mid-stage. It could not result in such a great increase in strength. Baldy Cheen had the cultivation level of a human lord, but looking at Iyun, he had no clue.
Second arrow. It's still easy. The people's hearts trembled. Iyun's strength had opened a gap between them, a 18-street-wide gap. Iyun licked his lips and was overjoyed. These 1,000 dragon scale runes sure were easy to earn. Iyun casually rubbed his wrists. He bent down and touched the third primal arrow. He did not take a break, and he was doing it all at one go. Again! With a clear shout, Iyun's hands stably lifted up the primal arrow. By feeling the energy flow within his body, he could still sense that inharmonious feeling. Nevertheless, it did not affect Iyun's explosive power. Third arrow, in. With the shout, Iyun's blood boiled within his veins. The primordial herb's energy gushed out like an erupting volcano. At this point, Iyun could feel his energy reach a climax. He could not wait to vent it out. With the primal arrow in his hands, he sent his whole body's strength into the primal arrow and stabbed it with all his strength. Dang! The tumultuous sound tore apart the heavens. Even the purple tungsten wall slightly trembled. This third primal arrow was forcefully nailed into the wall. The arrow's tail was vibrating so quickly that it formed shadows. This arrow went in more than 4 feet deep. Compared to the previous 2 arrows, this was more than 2 times stronger. The surrounding youths were dumbfounded. What is this kind of strength? How could that be? Iyun, who was in front of them, was a humanoid desolate beast. Zhou Kuei was in a daze. The lofty sentiments that had previously surged in his heart had disappeared. The masculine declaration he had prepared when he won was now a joke. Didn't Iyun pick herbs? One can improve that much just by picking herbs? Among this group, some forged metal while others were sparring partners. They went through an arduous month. They either suffered from muscle aches from repeatedly swinging the forging hammer, resulting in blisters and blood on their palms, or those who were sparring partners, who were beaten up seriously. After they put on some medicine, they had to stand up to be beaten again. Through their hard work, they managed to save some dragon scale runes. They used it to exchange for relics and elixirs in the 10,000 pagoda. It had to be said that the Tai A Divine City's relics and elixirs were much better than the ones they ate back home. Their progress had been obvious, but compared to Iyun, it was completely inferior. It was a torture to compare, trash thrown out upon comparison. How? How did your strength increase so much? How is that possible? Zhou Kuei could not believe it. In the past month, he had not slacked off at all, yet he could not compare with Iyun, who went to the mountains to pick herbs. Iyun smiled. In this past month, didn't every second count? Besides picking herbs, he was wearing 200 cauldrons in the flowing mercury gown daily. He climbed up and down the herb mountain, training his strength and movement. When he returned at night, he would meditate till morning. He had never laid down in bed to sleep. In the Tai A Divine City, sleep was too extravagant. By replacing it with meditation, he could also slowly increase his cultivation level while resting. And because of capturing the primordial herb, Iyun had to use all his tricks, and he underwent great danger. Under extreme danger and various difficulties, he seized that 1 in 1,000 chance and he grabbed the opportunity that no one thought possible. Could this be compared to simply wielding a forging hammer or taking a beating while sparring? Of course, Iyun did not say any of this. He grinned and said to Zhou Kuei, "This is all because." Iyun dragged out his words to whet the people's appetite, before finally saying the 3 words. "Of good luck." Zhou Kuei nearly vomited blood due to anger. He felt that Iyun was teasing him. The hard work they had put in this whole month had been upended by Iyun's mention of good luck. Zhou Kuei was really angry. He ignored the strength gap between him and Yi Yun and said bluntly, "Stop brushing me off." "What do you mean by good luck?" "You have just been picking herbs, it is a job meant for women. By goofing off all day, how can you grow in strength? Or grow in cultivation level? What did you?"
Before Zhou Kuei finished his words, a group of men dressed in black cloaks suddenly walked over from the edge of the school ground.
These men were dressed oddly. They had a mysterious feel to them.
Their casual steps seemed slow, but the space between their feet seemed to contract.
In a few steps, they had reached the center of the school ground. Among them was the herb-picking officer's Wang. She impressively followed behind these men. Wang, who never showed any respect to
anyone, was now respectful.
Clearly, these people in front of them were important.
Upon seeing these men, even Instructor Qin turned serious. The arms he held behind his back now hang downwards.
"Lord Law Enforcer." Baldy Qin slightly bowed. His position in the Tai A Divine City was lower than these people. Law Enforcer?
The youths present were shocked.
What position was a law enforcer?
Although they did not know the cultivation levels of these men in black, they could feel an oppressive feeling from their auras.
And Instructor Qin's attitude clearly showed that these law enforcers were important people. Many of the youths immediately stood at attention.
Baldy Qin was also confused. Why would the law enforcers from the Central Divine Tower come to a recruit school ground? A middle-aged man who was the leader of the black-cloaked men unveiled his face hood, revealing a wizened face. On his face, there were 3 parallel lines that formed an astonishing scar. It was as if he had been scratched by a desolate beast's claws.
His gaze swept the crowd of youths and calmly asked, "Who is Yi Yun?" Chapter 199, Elder Jian Gu. Yi Yun? He's looking for Yi Yun. Upon hearing the black-cloaked man asking for Yi Yun, the youths were shocked. Why was such an important person looking for Yi Yun for?
Although Yi Yun was outstanding, he was just a rookie that would not attract the attention of such important people.
"I am." Yi Yun stepped forward. He gave a Tai A Divine Kingdom military salute to the law enforcer. The black-cloaked middle-aged man sized up Yi Yun, as if he was trying to figure out what was so special about this youth. This little fellow was really surprising for a mid-stage purple-blood 13-year-old. The black-cloaked man smiled and said lightly, "Follow us, the elder wants to see you." Saying that, the black-cloaked man turned to leave. Behind him, Zhou Kuei and the other bunch of youths were stunned upon hearing this. What did that black-cloaked guy say? Elder. What elder? Many of them had not recovered from the shock. They looked at each other. It seems, in the entire Tai A Divine City, the people who were qualified to be referred to as elders were only a handful of people. Each of them was a pillar of support for the Tai A Divine Kingdom, and they were a super existence that could battle a primordial species. They were sages. A human sage wanted to see Yi Yun. They were shocked. Not even the youths, but even Baldy Qin was baffled. The Divine City's elder wanted to see Yi Yun? This was really unbelievable. In the history of the Tai A Divine City, there may not be a single human sage in 500 years. Baldy Qin obviously knew that the reason the elder wanted to see Yi Yun was definitely not because he could insert a few primal arrows into the purple tungsten wall. Yi Yun's 3 primal arrows were indeed not bad, but it was definitely not worthy of the elder's concern. Ignoring people like Qin Haotian, even new recruits like Shonyo could match Yi Yun's standard. This achievement, in the eyes of a human sage, was like a passing cloud. It was absolutely negligible. Then, why did the elder want to see Yi Yun? "Instructor Qin, I'm leaving for a bit. For that reward, sorry for bothering you." Yi Yun bade farewell to Baldy Qin and followed the black-cloaked man. Baldy Qin was still stunned and did not react, nor did he make a sound. Behind Baldy Qin, Zhou Kuei and the other youths were already dumbfounded.
Their agape mouths did not close even when Iyun disappeared from their sight.
Jokue suddenly recalled that before Iyun lifted the primal arrow, Iyun had mentioned that he was in a rush because someone might want to see him in a while. At that time, Jokue thought that it was some medicine child that Iyun picked herbs with. But now he realized that the person who wanted to meet him was the Tai-A Divine City Elder. The person Iyun casually said he was meeting was actually the Tai-A Divine City's elder. Jokue began wondering if he had a mental problem. "Instructor Qin, what the hell is going on?" someone asked Baldy Qin, but Baldy Qin shook his head. He had no idea too. "Dismissed."
Baldy Qin waved his hand.
For Iyun to be summoned by the elder, this was definitely a huge matter in the recruit camp.
Baldy Qin did not know what Iyun did that could involve the elder.
He was prepared to ask Wang in a moment.
And at this time, Iyun had already followed the law enforcer to the Central Divine Tower. Despite seeing the huge and majestic Central Divine Tower several times, Iyun was still shocked by its majesty.
It was like a majestic mountain.
The huge airships that flew in and out of the Central Divine Tower were as small as flying bugs compared to it. The black-cloaked man said, "The Tai-A Divine City has 5 elders.
The one meeting you later is Elder Jiangu. Elder Jiangu is currently in the Central Divine Tower's Earth-Fire Alchemy Lab." As the black-cloaked man spoke, he took Iyun into the Central Divine Tower.
The hall's passageway was 5 floors high. It gave the people who walked through it a feeling like they were tiny. There were huge mural paintings and sculptures lining up along the 2 sides of the passage, and the floor was made of flat tiles. These tiles were black and they were so bright that you could use them as a mirror. When Iyun stepped on the tiles, he could feel his blood circulation speed up. There was a faint feeling that his body's blood was connected to the floor tiles.
These tiles.
Iyun suddenly recalled the description of the Central Divine Tower from the Divine Wilderness book. The tiles used in the Central Divine Tower were specially made.
These tiles were 3 feet and 3 inches in length and 3 feet and 3/16 inches wide.
The tiles were smooth and they were as hard as steel.
They had a special name, Beast Blood Midnight Tiles.
Midnight was used to describe the blackness of the tiles, while the beast blood was used because each tile was sprayed with desolate beast blood before being placed into the furnace. It was hard to imagine how much desolate beast blood was used to build this Central Divine Tower.
Tiles baked in a furnace with beast blood would absorb the blood's strength.
With the Array Master's elaborate setup, the Central Divine Tower became a huge treasure, allowing it to gather all the Heaven-Earth Yuan Qi within 100 miles of it. It could be said that the Central Divine Tower was built using an extreme amount of wealth and materials when the Tai-A Divine Kingdom was extremely strong. This was the Tai-A Divine Kingdom's symbol. The black-robed man pushed a heavy stone door, which revealed a spiraling staircase that led downwards behind it.
"Follow me,"
the black-cloaked man said and started walking down the spiral staircase. The spiral staircase was not wide and it could only allow 4 to 5 people to walk up or down it at the same time.
Iyun guessed that this was a small path that led underground.
However, because Elder Jiangu lived underground in the Divine Tower and not at the Central Divine Tower's peak, Iyun was disappointed. Iyun really wanted to take a look at the levels above the 90th floor of the Central Divine Tower. He wanted to see the legendary top-class rooms. The top-class rooms were mysterious and they were of the utmost grandeur among cultivators in the Tai-A Divine City. Ignoring normal cultivators, even a person like Qin Haodian, who had cultivated in the Tai-A Divine City for 6 years, might not be eligible to stay in one of those top-class rooms. The spiral staircase, which did not seem to have an ending, had lit lamps on both sides of the wall. Iyun estimated that he had descended a few hundred meters before they arrived in front of a metal door.
This metal door was engraved with all sorts of complex patterns.
The black-cloaked man stood in front of the door and bowed. "Elder Jiangu, I have brought Iyun."
"All right," a muffled voice transmitted from the big door.
It lacked any might, but the sound did not dissipate and kept echoing.
Iyun held his breath. He was worried about meeting the elder.
Without anyone pushing the door opened by itself. A stream of hot gas rushed forward.
Hot. This was Yi Yun's first feeling. In front of him was the Earthfire Alchemy Lab. A furnace made of brass stood in the middle of the hall. The furnace was the height of a person, and on the surface were carvings of flowers, birds, insects, and fish. Below the furnace, a green flame burned. This flame was silent. The flame was steady and it did not jump. This was the so-called Earth Fire. In the basement of the central divine tower, there was a Earth Fire array that gathered the divine wilderness's fire for the elder to be used in refining elixirs. And in front of the furnace stood a green-shirt elder. He had very ordinary looks and he was slightly thin. As such, his green alchemist robes looked baggy. Behind the green-shirt elder was a sword. The sword was wrapped up in cloth, only revealing an unsophisticated hilt. It made it hard to imagine what the sword looked like. This elder looked like he had spent a long time in the Earthfire Alchemy Lab. His eyes even looked tired, making him look listless. It was difficult to imagine that this groggy-looking old man, who did not look like anyone special, was one of the strongest experts in the Tai Divine Kingdom. Elder Jin Ge, I have brought Yi Yun here. After the black-cloaked man bowed, he silently backed out and closed the door. Suddenly, there was only Yi Yun and the green-shirt elder left in the alchemy lab. Yi Yun held his breath. He told himself to remain calm, but still, his heart beat even faster. He had seen many strong desolate beasts in the past, but when facing them, Yi Yun had no fear. However, in front of this elder, even though the elder did not do anything and looked listless, Yi Yun still felt a tremendous pressure. He was like a mortal trapped in a cage with a fierce tiger. You are Yi Yun? The green-shirt elder lightly asked. The eyes that were originally half-closed suddenly opened, reflecting Yi Yun's figure in his black pupils. As if he was looking at a mirror, Yi Yun could clearly see himself through the elder's pupils. Yi Yun tightened up immediately. He felt that the eyes were looking through him. His every inch of flesh and blood, his dantian, his organs, his 360 acupuncture points, the 12 regular meridians and the 8 special meridians were all being scanned by the elder. Heaven's eye. Yi Yun felt a tremor in his heart. He wished he could stop his beating heart. But reality went contrary to his wishes, and Yi Yun's heart began beating even faster. Within his heart, the purple crystal throbbed along with his heart and pulsated along. Yi Yun's palms began to ooze sweat. The purple crystal did not react to the green-shirt elder's scan. But, when the green-shirt elder's scan swept past the purple crystal, he did not stop. The green-shirt elder carefully sized up Yi Yun a few times and he looked through Yi Yun inside out. But even after sweeping past Yi Yun's heart a few times, he still did not detect the presence of the purple crystal. Finally, the green-shirt elder withdrew his sensing. The short few seconds made Yi Yun feel like he was in a great war. It was extremely exhausting. It was much more tiring than capturing the heaven purple Yang Ginseng. The green-shirt elder looked at Yi Yun with a surprise. You have formed the heaven's eyeball? Since the green-shirt elder's senses were sharp, the fact that Yi Yun had formed a heaven's eyeball naturally could not escape his eyes. Chapter 200, Yi Yun's Reward. Yes. Yi Yun had returned to normal. His rapid heartbeat and stagnant breathing was naturally perceived by the green-shirt elder. But it was nothing weird. It was rare for a youth to appear composed in front of a Tai Divine City elder. To form a heaven's eyeball before 13 years of age, you do indeed have exceeding talent in terms of perception. The green-shirt elder praised Yi Yun. He had previously heard from the black-cloak man that Yi Yun was talented at picking herbs. He had picked more than 200 dragon-scale runes worth of herbs on his first day. This perception was extraordinary. Thank you for Elder Jin Ge's appreciation, Yi Yun respectfully answered. The green-shirt elder looked at Yi Yun with a meaningful glance. He guessed that Yi Yun must have had some special opportunity.
In the Tai Divine Kingdom, there were countless geniuses.
Not having any special opportunities would make becoming a top human lord, or even a sage, too difficult. The human sages that appeared once every 500 years were all full of talent. Together with great luck, they experienced stunning opportunities.
Many of the geniuses in the Tai Divine City had their own special encounters. For this, the green-shirted elder was in no way surprised. Of course, the special encounters these young geniuses had were nothing when placed in front of people at the rank of the Tai Divine City's elders. Special opportunities Purple Blood Realm warriors encountered were meaningless to sages. Even if they were occasionally tempted by it, they would not compete for them.
As a Divine City's elder, they had the basic amount of open-mindedness. If rumors spread of a Divine City elder snatching the special opportunities of a younger junior, the Tai Divine Kingdom's reputation would be torn apart.
Previously, the green-shirted elder had used his Heaven's Eye to scan Yun's body.
If there was anything special about it, he would have noticed it.
But there was nothing.
The green-shirted elder guessed with certainty that Yun had swallowed some divine treasure that promoted his spiritual evolution. Such an explanation was most reasonable.
This time, by handing over the Heaven Purple Yang Ginseng, you did a great achievement. Unfortunately, the Purple Yang Ginseng's main body is damaged, and a lot of the herbal essence was lost. Its soul was also destroyed. Its value is only about a third of a complete Heaven Purple Yang Ginseng. But, this seat, I said in a confident way, will not be petty and will not give you an unfavorable reward. Hearing the green-shirted elder's words, Yun finally felt greatly relieved. Ignoring the reward, he had passed. In front of Elder Jiangu, Yun was under immense pressure, for he was afraid something might go wrong. This Elder Jiangu might still have his doubts, but after deeply probing him, he could still not detect anything. I'll give you 10,000 dragon scale runes, and 3 glory points as a reward. Saying this, Elder Jiangu took out an unimpressive token. With his mind interfaced with the token, a dense stream of dragon scale runes flew towards Yun. Yun saw layers of dragon scale runes fly into his identity token. 10,000 dragon scale runes. With this amount of dragon scale runes, he could stay in the Wilderness Divine Hall for almost a day. Not only could he absorb the primordial species energy, he could also attempt to understand the founding city lord's nomological truths for an entire day. There were too many things he could do. Of course, Yun knew that the 10,000 dragon scale runes were not that precious. What was most precious were the 3 glory points. The glory points were extremely precious to the cultivators in the Tai Divine City. May I ask, what can I exchange the glory points for? Yun asked unsettlingly. Elder Jiangu smiled and took out a jade scroll before throwing it to Yun. This is the top-class second-rank rewards. All the top-class rewards have to be exchanged using glory points. You can exchange for most of the items within that jade scroll. Yun caught the jade scroll and injected his consciousness into the jade scroll. Within the jade scroll were treasures after treasures. There were weapons, elixirs, and relics. Not only was there a textual description of the treasure, there were even figures. Deva Flower Sword, 1,000 dragon scale runes, 1 glory point. Yun looked at the figure of the Deva Flower Sword. It was a full-bodied black long sword wrapped in python skin. Just from looking at the image, he could feel a sharp and murderous feeling. The Deva Flower Sword is made from metal that came beyond the heavens. Through the hands of a master in the Sky Sword family clan, the sword was engraved with inscriptions. When the sword was created, it was mixed with the blood essence of a primordial species. The first weapon did not interest Yun. A divine weapon made from the primordial species blood essence was of course good, but it was too extravagant for himself. There were other bows and sabers that were about the same level as the Deva Flower Sword, but Yun just browsed through them before giving them up. The first task now for Yun was to increase his own strength, and not through the use of foreign objects. Yun carried on looking. The further the list went on, the more expensive they became. In the beginning, the treasures were valued at 1 glory point and 1,000 dragon scale runes. But nearer to the end, most of them needed 10,000 dragon scale runes or tens of thousands of dragon scale runes. There were even items that cost 100,000 dragon scale runes.
And they needed 2 glory points. Dragon Marrow Relic, 1,000 dragon scale runes, 2 glory points. A dragon marrow relic refined from a king-ranked desolate beast.
It can cause marrow cleansing in a person, allowing him to break through a bottleneck.
There were many relics and elixirs listed in the Jade Scroll that could be exchanged for.
However, Yi Yun was uninterested in them. He had the purple crystal, so there was no shortage of energy for cultivation. If he lacked elixirs, Yi Yun would have just completely sucked dry the heaven purple yang ginseng in the number 60 mountain. By risking to hand the heaven purple yang ginseng over, he received the lacking resources he needed.
Why would he use it to exchange for elixirs or relics? Yi Yun carried on digging deeper.
At this time, he finally saw a treasure that moved him. The first 3 volumes of the Taya Sacred Technique, 10,000 dragon scale runes, 2 glory points.
It's actually the Taya Sacred Technique. Yi Yun's eyelids twitched.
The founding emperor of the Taya Divine Kingdom had left behind this compendium.
The successive monarchs and the Taya Divine Kingdom city lords had even added their own understandings to the Taya Sacred Technique.
After tens of millions of years, this Taya Sacred Technique had become extremely profound. It was the crowning achievement of the Taya Divine Kingdom's martial arts, and was the core of the Taya Divine Kingdom's royal family's heritage. A cultivation technique like the dragon-ribbed tiger bone fist was low in grade but very useful. Hence, the Taya Divine Kingdom had no qualms about making it public. But for the Taya Sacred Technique, as a cornerstone of the Taya Divine Kingdom, the royal family had always strictly controlled it.
Taya Sacred Technique. As expected, it can be exchanged. Yi Yun's eyes lit up. Cultivation techniques were extremely important to Yi Yun.
Having come to the Taya Divine City, Yi Yun had no lack in relics or elixirs, but he had no cultivation techniques. By turning in the heaven purple yang ginseng, his main goal was to obtain a high-level cultivation technique. The energy within the heaven purple yang ginseng was indeed precious, but to Yi Yun, if he absorbed too much, the effects would eventually lessen. He did not have the cultivation technique to digest it and manage the energy. The basic dragon rib tiger bone fist could not support Yi Yun's cultivation in the future. A while ago in the school grounds, when Yi Yun lifted the primal arrow to insert into the purple tungsten wall, he felt that due to insufficiency of the cultivation technique, he had trouble managing the surging power. If he had a high-grade cultivation technique that trained the body, or a cultivation technique to control his Yuan Qi, then Yi Yun's strength could go to the next level. After the Taya Sacred Technique, Yi Yun quickly browsed through the other treasures. Yi Yun paid special attention to other cultivation techniques, but after some deliberation, Yi Yun still decided on practicing the Taya Sacred Technique. This Taya Sacred Technique may be a cultivation technique, but it included attack moves, nomological truths, and movement techniques. It was a comprehensive martial arts compendium. Among the top-class second-ranked Jade Scroll, it was the most complete and suitable for Yi Yun. But of course, its price was the most expensive. Currently, Yi Yun could only exchange for the first 3 volumes of the Taya Sacred Technique. The Taya Sacred Technique had a total of 9 volumes.
The first 3 volumes needed 2 glory points, while just the 4th volume alone needed 2 glory points. The 5th volume needed 3 glory points.
Moving on, there was no mention of the 6th volume's price. As for the Taya Sacred Technique 7th to 9th volumes, those were in the realm of sages. A typical warrior had no chance of accessing it in their lives.
In fact, for young heroes, the first 3 volumes were sufficient. Those who could completely master the first 3 volumes would have the ability to show disdain for the Taya Divine City. Have you decided? The green-shirt elder asked Yi Yun. Yes. Yi Yun nodded solemnly. But before I make my decision, this junior has something to ask Elder Jian Gu. Oh. Go ahead. It's like this.
This junior heard from Elder Jiangu that this Jade Scroll includes only the second-ranked prizes. This junior wants to know what's within the first-ranked prizes in the top-class Jade Scroll. When Yun said that, his eyes shined.
He wanted to shine in the Tai A Divine City.
In the next few years, he wanted to challenge all sorts of achievements.
He wanted to see what treasures there were in the Tai A Divine City that he could use as a goal to pursue.